Hello everyone, I'm the introverted astrologer and I'm happy to be back again with a fresh take on J.D. Vance. Now I found a bit more activity by using a specific forecasting method. We've used this method for the other candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and today we'll apply it to Vance. So please do join me at the computer and I'll show you what I found. So what we are doing here is taking a look at JD's converse measurements. We've already noticed by using our real-time measurements on Vance's chart that he has some very important sign changes of his angles, his progressed ascendant and midheaven, and these correspond with a point in time around mid-2025. These kind of things happen when something very important in life is shifting. And so we're trying to get a bit more information about Vance's future and also, of course, to see if we can shed more light on the 5th of November elections. But why would we step back in time to find out something that is actually in the future? We are doing this because it is a tried and trusted way of getting more information about a specific year in our life. This is also quite an old method, and the renowned astrologer Dane Rudyard had found that if we step back in time, the converse progressions are every bit as valid as those that we use in standard real time. Moreover, they often tell us things which have a more fated or karmic feeling to them. We know that JD turned 40 on the 2nd of August this year. His birthday has just gone. In real time, the elections are 96 days after his birthday. Because we are moving back in time, we therefore count down 96 days before the elections. And so we arrive at a date of the 28th of April in 1944. And we are looking to see JD's chance of significant success in this period. We've already worked out that there are a couple of things going on in his real-time progressions, and we have got our eyes peeled for any other signs. When we use converse progressions, we are actually moving backwards, one day in our ephemeris for every 1 year of life. At this point in time, JD's ascendant, which is natally in Leo here at 27 degrees, has actually reversed backwards to a point of 26 degrees of Cancer. And his midheaven has just recently passed over the point of around 11 degrees of Aries. But critically, are these progressed angles going to make any contact with important natal planets? We can see that they aren't changing sign, but is there other important information that we can spot? Well, that progressed midheaven at almost 11 degrees of Aries is slowly reversing into an exact trine aspect with that natal sun. It has a further 26 minutes odd to travel before the contact becomes exact. This places it in the date range of approximately late November 1943. And in real time, that is about half a year after the November election. So we have another important contact to add to the growing list of things that we've spotted becoming exact, roughly halfway through 2025, but not 2024. This is adding yet another very important measurement to a pattern which is currently baffling me. Why are we seeing so many prominent connections drawing together for a point well after the November elections? Because the midheaven represents the part of us that the world sees, it is our role out there in the public eye, and for many of us that will be our formal career, our profession, what we do out in the world. And when a connection is made by trine to the sun, it allows our true solar nature to beam out, to shine out through our career path. It can often coincide with times of recognition and making great strides in our career. In fact, We will often see the sun bang on the midheaven in progressions or solar arcs at times of big success or a big step up in the world. The trine that Vance will be experiencing isn't as strong as a conjunction, but it is certainly something favourable. And the sun in Vance's chart is doubly important because, of course, he has a Leo ascendant, and the sun is the ruler of that ascendant. So let's make a note that something significant may happen, most likely for the better, in JD's career in around 6 months after the election. Now, progressions have a reputation for being a little more precise in their timing than some of the other forecasting tools. So I'd just like to drag into this video some of the observations that we've made in my earlier video on the real-time progressions. I think this is important because we noticed that the real-time progressed ascendant and midheaven were going to change sign somewhere around July 2025. This is a really big thing. To place it into context, it will take anywhere up to around 40 years for an angle to change sign. So it's a big shift when it happens. And now we have something additional to add to that, namely that the converse progressed midheaven is soon going to trine that natal sun. And this is reconfirming my findings that mid-2025 could be particularly significant for Vance, for reasons that I don't yet know. Now, this converse moon is around roughly 21 degrees of Aries now, and it is slowly reversing through the sign of Aries. It will move around 12 degrees over the course of a year, and so it will make aspects with JD's natal planets and points as it travels. It's currently in the area of the 9th house, and if we refer also to the whole sign position, this would place Aries in the 9th house. So we have two themes being emphasised here. We have the 9th house energy, which is all about belief systems, exploration, opening up new vistas. It could be about our faith and our religious ideas. And we also associate the 9th house with the sign of Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. And because the moon is in the background energy of Aries, this too is fiery energy. Fire is warm, enthusiastic, motivated, excitable. So we can expect a vibrant dynamism and enthusiasm to be underpinning this point in Vance's life, in his emotional self-expression. Aries is pioneering. It's a very alive emotional energy with an emphasis on our personal actions, our independence, and fulfilling our own needs. It isn't very long ago that this progressed moon would have left a trine aspect that it was making with natal Venus in Leo. This would correspond with the real time of August and September this year, possibly showing some weeks where Vance is able to thoroughly enjoy a time of greater sociability, time spent with other people, an emphasis on enjoyment and emotional satisfaction, and possibly a time when our judgment is quite steady. We can also see that that progressed moon would have made a trine aspect with his natal ascendant at a date equivalent to May, June of 2024. And so this would have been a time of greater confidence in ourselves, projecting our persona in a clear way, acting in accord with our inner feelings in a much easier way because, of course, the trine aspect itself removes all resistance. And so on balance, creativity, fresh ideas, excitement have all been possible during these couple of months. And this aspect would potentially have been around shortly before his new position of running mate was announced. There is another position that has recently become exact, and this is progressed Venus. She is just reversing out of an opposition aspect that she has been making with natal Jupiter. These two planets are the benefics, and they don't actually have a strong natal connection. And so we could have benefits and pitfalls with this opposition. It's waning in intensity now, but the time when it was most intense would have been around the 5th of August 1944. In real time, this is equivalent to the time around Vance's 40th birthday, which has just passed. And under this influence, we could get carried away. We may go to excess and overstep the mark. Because the planets have a benefic nature, there may not necessarily be lasting harm arising from this contact. And often an opposition contact implies that some sort of decision is taken. But there is just that need to be on guard against excess in all our affairs. We are likely to overestimate our capabilities and be too indulgent of ourselves under this influence. So we have a couple of things that we've picked up here. And now let's move on and have a look at the converse solar arcs. These are placed around the outside of the birth chart in blue. And when we use this method of forecasting, we are basically moving every planet and the angles in the chart backwards by 1 degree for every year of life. This means that even very slow moving planets like Neptune, Uranus, Pluto will move the same distance as the faster moving Moon or Mercury. We then compare the positions of these solar arc planets with the natal chart and see if any important connections are being made. We had found very little going on in the real-time solar arc positions, but we're going to pay particular attention to any solar arc points that are within 30 minutes of becoming exact either side. Probably the most important of these is the fact that the solar arc ascendant will be making an aspect with JD's natal moon. I'll put up a basic interpretation of the range of possibilities that this contact could symbolise, and we have a couple of others too, which is that solar arc Mercury will be connecting with the Pluto, and solar arc Chiron connects with Pluto too, although this is almost out of range of that 30-degree threshold that I'm using. So we aren't flooded with solar arc contacts. And we have to bear in mind that the timing of these solar arc directions can be a little less exact than our progressions, and this is because the energy can express itself in an outward event over any time within roughly a 1-year period. And so we've identified 3 contacts. One of them is almost out of orb. And in my opinion, I'm finding a little less than I would be hoping for if November was going to be indicating a major career shift. So let's move on and consider the converse solar return. The solar return is a chart that we can cast every year at the precise time that the sun returns to the same point that it was at when we were born. In Vance's case, this is 10 degrees and 22 minutes of Leo. And the chart that we see will then cover a period of roughly 1 year, in this case spanning between August 1944 and August of 1943. What you can see on the left is the Placidus solar return on its own, with the reference place set as Vance's birthplace. The chart on the right shows us Vance's natal chart with the solar return planets placed around the outside. And the chart in the centre is the whole sign version, with Vance's natal chart in the centre and the solar return positions placed around the outer edge. If we consider the chart on the left first, this is the basic promise of the solar return on its own. We can see that some things are important just on its appearance alone. For a start, we have a Sagittarius ascendant, and this Sagittarius energy is proving to be a repeating theme, both backwards and forwards in time. This energy is very much about expanding and enlarging our vision, of incorporating new beliefs, potentially making adjustments to our belief system. And this is doubly confirmed by the position of the solar return sun, because it's very near the cusp of the 9th house. So near that I would interpret this as being 9th house energy. If we were looking at the whole sign chart, this would be 9th house. So there is this double emphasis on belief systems and philosophy of expansion and enlargement. long distance travel is always a possibility. It's exciting and it opens up new horizons for us to explore. We can see that Mars and Chiron are very close to the midheaven of this chart. The part of the chart that is showing us about career, about the parts of our life that are on public display, how the world is perceiving us, and where our ambitions and career goals lay. Now, this Mars and Chiron both together at this point could possibly be showing us something about a potential wounding or inadequacy in our striving to fulfill our career goals. Mars represents our ability to go out there and get what we want for ourselves, but it has many other symbolisms too, and these include our initiatory force, potentially anger or aggression. And Chiron represents the part of us that can be hurt. It can show where we are prone to either lash out and hurt others, or to lick our wounds quietly and feel pained or oversensitive. These two together are telling us something, and it could be a spectrum of possibilities. The wounded warrior, a suggestion that our drive to fulfill our professional ambitions is somehow being thwarted or hurt. Perhaps our personal inadequacies or oversensitivities around anger or of asserting our will are being placed out there for the world to see. Or possibly even that we could bring healing to others through our career platform and address public inadequacies or hurts around asserting our will to get what we want. There is a simultaneous square, and quite a close one at that, between these 2 points and Uranus in the 7th house. So there could be changes to our formal relationships, because this is what the 7th house is about, which also involves those issues of anger, pain, healing, wounding. The solar return moon is in Capricorn, a position where it is said to be in detriment. This is because the moon represents our naturally very sensitive emotional expression, our emotional nature, and it isn't very much at home against the backdrop of Capricorn energy, which is very structured, dutiful, ambitious, hierarchical. Capricorn is very much about career, about climbing that career ladder and achieving positions of status. So let's take these themes of expansion, belief systems, career, our will and wounding. Let's carry these over to the chart on the right, because we should never consider the solar return entirely on its own. And we need to be very mindful of any intermingling of the angles of both the natal chart and the solar return chart, because these are such highly sensitive points. The angles especially will tell us a great deal, and we'll often find important birth planets on the solar return angles, or vice versa, when we are searching to see whether there will be any big steps up in life or major life shifts and changes. And we'll look at the midheaven first, because this is the part of our chart where big shifts or promotions in career could show up. Now, we can't see any interaction between JD's natal planets and the midheaven of the solar return, and similarly there are no solar return planets on Vance's natal midheaven. That solar return moon which we talked about with its sign placement of Capricorn isn't making very significant interaspects with the natal chart, so we can deduce that career aims are taking emotional precedence for us this year, but there isn't really the joyous promise of these aims being realised. And that moon is also square to JD's natal moon, perhaps indicating that this fresh concentration of energy on career aims comes with some disruption to our usual emotional self-expression, which has an emphasis on our close one-to-one personal relationships. There are a couple of planets which bring both of the ascendants to a little more prominence. Our ascendant is the way we portray ourselves. It can tell us a lot about our physical appearance and our bodies, and to a certain extent It's the persona that we project to the outer world and how others will see us physically. We can see that the solar return ascendant is about 6 degrees away from Vance's natal Uranus. That Uranus is hinting at a change to the way we project ourselves outwardly, because Uranus ushers in the new and disrupts existing patterns. We can also see that opposite this solar return ascendant is where we would find the descendant. This descendant would be around 3 degrees of Gemini, and so you can see it is extremely close to the North Node, and Chiron is nearby too. And so the ascendant-descendant axis is actually reinvigorating that natal T-square that JD has, which is between the node and Chiron, Mercury and Uranus. I suspect that this is the part of JD's chart where his thought processes and his ways of communicating and interacting with others, be this verbal or written, have almost been electrified. He is capable of thinking at great speed, sometimes too quickly, and of saying things which are occasionally too rapid, too fast out of the box, and either end up leaving him with a feeling of personal inadequacy or are indeed a source of hurt to other people, because Chiron not only represents our own inner wounds, but it also points to where we have the capacity to hurt others. I'm pointing this out because we also saw the emphasis of this natal T-square in the real-time measurements that we used. So this part of his natal chart is being brought to prominence whether we move backwards or forwards in time, and so it's important. We would expect a Mercury that is intelligent, finely attuned to detail, a highly discriminating ability to process facts and to communicate in a carefully considered and rational way. But that additional factor of the lightning speed and disruption coming in via Uranus and the potential wounding drawn in with Chiron are affecting the potentials of this Mercury. Uranus is not a planet which we would associate with sensitivity or tenderness. And so this tense trio means that we could often communicate at speed without regard for the consequences or for the feelings of others, which we then pay a price for afterwards. And as with all the difficulties that we may come across in our natal charts, there is always the potential to learn and grow with difficult combinations and to harness the higher vibration of the principles. And so the unorthodox and eccentric energies of Uranus could combine with Mercury and in time produce a highly sensitive communicator, somebody able to choose their words with care and promote healing through their unorthodox and original insights. The solar return Jupiter, very nearby to that Mercury, is showing that all communications and oratory are going to be of pivotal importance this year. And in fact, that Jupiter is within about 4 degrees of the natal ascendant, and it's conjunct to the natal Mercury. So the Jupiter is speaking of expansion, of hope, of optimism. We are voluble, and there is a great emphasis on our ability to write, to interact and to talk to others about our actions and our goals. This is certainly a year where this ability is being emphasised. Pluto on the Sun is showing some potential for power and change and transformation. This is a very strong combination, but the emphasis isn't really in the parts of the chart that I would be expecting to see it. I believe Kamala Harris had Jupiter connecting with the ascendant of her real-time solar return, as she had Uranus, Pluto and Venus on her midheaven. She also had Pluto connecting with the ascendant of her converse solar return chart. However, we also saw a conjunction within 2 degrees of a personal planet to her solar return midheaven. And so, in my opinion, her solar returns are showing stronger interconnections than Vance's, and I believe her position is slightly stronger. And my own opinion is that her various planetary alignments and returns are stronger than JD Vance's. Until then, take care and God bless you all.